So now we're going to head down to the courthouse. The town was granted $3,400 in 1875 to construct the courthouse. It was completed in 1876. Like I said earlier, 29 years it served as a courthouse. In 1905, when the county seat was moved to Tonopah, the courthouse base closed. The silver boom ended around 1900, really. 1880s, the mines were becoming depleted. But they're trying to restore it, and basically if you do some work here, you have the opportunity to investigate these locations. The bricks for the courthouse were made on site. Wow, that's creepy. The lady's looking at us at the upstairs window. It's the most photographed courthouse in the Wild West, is this courthouse right here. Give you guys a little bit of a detailed overview. The Belmont Courthouse in 1867 in Nye Counties. In February of 1867, the Nye County seat was moved from Ione, Nevada to Belmont. The county offices were scattered around town in different buildings. Due to inconvenience and recent jailbreak from an old jail, the county built a new building to house all the offices, including the jail. They had in the bank, where the bank is, that's where the jail was at the time. And then they moved it here. In 1875, construction began using locally made bricks of mortar and stone from local quarries. Wood from the nearby Sears was sent to Belmont by train and wagon. A low-pitch hip roof cupola, tall windows and round arches, accented by pronounced molding with fine detail, emphasize the tall windows and the rounded arches. Accented pronounced molding with a fine detail emphasized by the building's Italianate style of architecture. Construction was completed in time. By July 4th of 1875, it was a celebration of the 100th anniversary of the United States of America. The building housed the county seat functions, government functions for the county, until 1905, and when the Nye County seat was moved to the Belmont, when the Nye County seat was moved and the Belmont Courthouse was left empty in the 1920s, the courthouse became abandoned, dilapidated. Most of the graffiti is characteristic of the time period until 1976 when the building was acquired by the state park system. At the time, the windows were closed, the doors were locked, weather and neglect took its toll, obviously like most of the buildings, and there is some structural damage. Today, the courthouse is protected by the Friends of the Belmont Courthouse, and they're working to restore this place. You gotta take the other road, right? That's the schoolhouse, you said? Right there? What you see here is remnants of the old schoolhouse. I don't know what time it was built. I have to look at my notes, but it's the first community school, was on Main Street. It was a small building, obviously of native stone, like most of the buildings here. When the community grew larger, the school became necessary. They held events and raised funds to build it. And in 1867, a ball was held in the Eder Stone building, and funds were raised to build it. And as this time and weather have taken their toll on the building, where children went to learn their ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. Actually, I made that up, but hey, that's all that remains right there.
This side goes up.
Yeah, it goes on the back side of the courthouse. There's a building back there.
That goes down.
You gotta go. You can't go to the school. I mean, that one goes to the school. This one goes to the other side of the courthouse. You'll see what's back here. There's an attached building that's wide open. Anyhow, for those that are reading this, oh look, there's jail cells still here. I guess the ones moved. Maybe they moved them back from Gabbs, because I've read on 2 different sites they were moved from Gabbs. Tents were the first structures here. And then the mines, after the mining, there was wood structures, stone, brick eventually was laid here. And according to my records, as I was saying earlier, besides the courthouse, you had the bank, telegraph, school, general store, newspapers. You even had whiskey shops here. It's just a beautiful place. And it says by 1867, the population was so high that it actually competed with Virginia City at the time. And you know Virginia City eventually had over 30,000 people. Said a lot of the land was rich due to springs, so there was a lot of new farmers in the area. Oh, these are the jails. I think we should have walked on the side maybe.
I'm going on the side.
This is the jail. You see the bars? I see a Kodak moment. This took over 25,000 bricks. And they had built kilns for making the mortar and the bricks here, right on site. Lumber was brought in, shipped from the railroad to Eureka, then transported by wagon to Belmont for this courthouse. In 1867, they built a wooden structure as a temporary courthouse while this was being built. And then the brick building came later for the administration needs. Basically, is added on and integrated it in there, which might be, back in here. You could tell this flat area because it started off as just a little wood building before they used the bank in the 1860s. It says the Silver Bend Reporter commented, Nye County is without a public edifice, no place for officers, no place of safety or for valuable archive records which owe to posterity. The newspaper called the county commission to correct that situation. It was pretty lawless here. They didn't have anything. Even though it took the county seat for a while, they needed a place to meet. It says right here, the roof featured a cupola, I was reading that earlier, the jail in the back, jury room, judges' chambers. Benham of Reno was selected to construct the buildings. It had offices. Masons were responsible for building and constructing this. And by mid-December of that year, it was finished. And then in the spring, they just did a few final touches with the roofing. Added the steel plates for the jail. And then added the cupola. I don't see the cupola on top. I mean, I do, but this place has really been affected. It was so vandalized. I'll tell you guys a little story when we get back in the front. But it was so vandalized, people were coming here spray painting, and even Charles Manson was writing his name on the back of the courthouse wall. Yes, the family was. So it's just a lot of weird things that go on up here. And even weird people sometimes coming up here and stealing the bricks to make their own house or business. It's wrong. It's wrong. Lucky this survived for almost 100 years. All right. 2 beds per cell. Wow. I thought there's a move to Gabbs. Four men per cell. This was the drunk tank in World War II. Things that could take a violent turn, and that would be it. Pretty cool. This one has not a smaller cell. Oh, must be solitary. There's no bed or nothing. And then, of course, you have bars on the windows, so maybe the criminals were brought through here and into the jail cells. Wow. Belmont's one of the most photographed ghost towns in the country. It's accessible, too. That's what I like about it. It's pretty nice. The support beams are because they don't want it to collapse. It's part of the restoration process. But let me go ahead and climb on up. Ow! God, there's ice everywhere. I can't get up. Holy shit. Oh my God. That's ridiculous, dude. Ridiculous. That's work. Got quite the storm coming through. We're just about done with Belmont. And we're going to move on to the Tonopah Cemetery, and then tomorrow we'll do the ghost town of Tonopah. We can't do everything in one day. There's just not enough feasible time. It's dark early. Can't wait to see this place fully restored. They're doing some restoration work right now. Hence the truck. A woman by the name of Rose Walters had lived here, I believe at the old inn. It's more of a caretaker's house. The Manson family showed up, but she thought, what are these people vandalizing the courthouse? Because the courthouse was dilapidated, and she wanted to preserve it. It is a fine piece of history. It's one of the finest courthouses in the West. And you know what? She comes up on him. She's like, "What are you doing to the courthouse?" And Manson's like, "We're just looking. We want a camper." And she says, "This is not a good place to camp." She goes, "You want to camp up at a place called Pine Creek, which is near here." Also, in addition, well, at the time, well, most of them are gone, but at the time there was corn growing here, peaches, alfalfa, even apples. Apples grew here. So this was at one time one giant farm with mines and mills. There's 5 mills. And in the courthouse, the most prominent structure in the land, or at least in this area. Now, I don't know if you can still see Manson's writings on the wall. They used to go to various places and write their names, like various ghost towns. Well, they did that in Ballarat, and I've been to the ghost town of Ballarat, and I've been to Belmont, and Charles Manson's been here, and believe me, I'm not a fan. I'm not, but it's just part of American history. The good, the bad, the ugly associated with Belmont, the outlaws, the shootouts. And so it does, the two go hand in hand. Here he is at a courthouse writing his name because, you know, he's rebelling. He's rebellious. He's like, screw the law. I'm not going to abide by the law. And where'd that get him except put in jail? And back in the 1800s, if Manson did what he did, they would hang him right here, right on the spot from this tree. They would. There's a lot of grim history. Like the men who were hung in the bank. Well, it's the bank. It became the bank. It was a temporary jail. There's been hangings and lynchings and murders and shootouts at some of these saloons as well. But you can imagine the look on her face when she comes out and finds a bunch of people vandalizing the courthouse. And it turns out to be, someone involved with murder and mayhem and chaos and hate. I mean, can you imagine that? As all that we're going to answer these couple cabins where miners and early prominent members of town had lived. Some people were ranchers, some people were miners. It's just that simple. Believe me, it's cold. There's been a few times I haven't felt my feet, but there's a lot of good, bad, and ugly here. There's murders, there's lynches, there's epidemics, there's plagues that broke out. Of course, there was one in Tonopah as well. It killed many children. But if you go to the cemetery, which we did in the beginning, I couldn't read most of the stones. They were under snow, but we dealt with it. But if you looked at most of the gravestones, a lot of children died of illness, cold. People couldn't really get goods back in here at the time in the 1860s. It was a rough little town, but it lasted from 1865 to 1905. And even I wouldn't even say it ever really ended. The boom ended, but people have always lived in this town. And new houses come to be and places become restored. And so it's a living ghost town. It's like stepping back in time. I mean, you had all kinds of different things. You had good times too. You had balls, you had various events, church every other Sunday. There was some good things in this town, but it was out of control. They didn't have no government buildings. And the courthouse came to be a little too late, in my opinion. When it was lawless, that's what led to the courthouse, was the lawlessness here. And then some of them outlaws would rob Belmont and go to Bodie and rob Bodie, which is not that far from here, and go up to Tonopah and try to rob Tonopah. It's just tales of the Wild West. And most of these places you see, they're haunted. There are ghosts that haunt these streets. I bet you where these men were hung or murdered in that bank, I bet you their ghosts are still in that bank. I bet you there's energy present. Well, we're going to be leaving Belmont soon. I got a couple more locations I'm going to surprise you with, and we're out of here. This is your founder, Lord Rick, of the Paranormal and Ghost Society.